Alright, the heavy albums of 2001. Too many fucking albums came out this year, so I'm gonna start off with Crowbar, Sonic Excess in its purest form. This would be the third and final album by Crowbar to feature Sammy Duet on guitar, and the only Crowbar album to feature bassist Jeff Okoneski and drummer the late Tony Costanza. And not to name drop, I made friends with this guy a couple years after this album was made. He was a pretty cool, down-to-earth guy, and he even wanted me to join one of his punk bands in Las Vegas. Anyway, this is their 7th album overall, and it was produced by Ugly Kid Joe guitarist Dave Fortman. Since I first listened to this album on its release date, it has stood as one of my top Crowbar albums released. The song, The Lasting Dose, has practically been in every Crowbar setlist since the album got great reviews from many metal sources around the world. The album is all killer and no filler, and from what I've heard, guitarist vocalist Kirk Winstein did not write any lyrics until it came to the time to record the vocal tracks. Dave Fortman even provides slide guitar on the instrumental track, In Times of Sorrow. Next, Corrosion of Conformity, Live Volume, Sanctuary Records. This was recorded on 4/20 of 01 at Harpo's Concert Theater in Detroit, Michigan. This is the only release by the band that features drummer Jimmy Bauer of Down, Crowbar. This is also available on DVD. The recordings of this event were mixed by Warren Riker, who's known for his production and mixing work with artists such as the Fugees, Santana, and Michael Jackson. Next, Sepultura, Nation, Roadrunner Records. This would be album number 8, and the album style would be considered groove metal. The album features several guest appearances by Jamie Josta from Hatebreed, Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys, and Apocalyptica. Sometime after the release of this album, Sepultura and the record label parted ways over some disputes. The reviews for this album were better than the previous album Against, yet it sold less copies. Up next, Pentagram, First Days Here, Relapse Records. This compilation covers the 70s era of the band, and because of this release, the recordings on this album were officially distributed worldwide. Many of the songs on this album were re-recorded on Pentagram albums from the 80s all the way to the present time. There is also a volume 2 to this album that came out in 2006. Next, we got Spirit Caravan with the album Elusive Truth, their second and final album. The album features 2 covers by The Obsessed, Lifer City and Spirit Caravan. My go-to tracks would be Black Flower and The Departure. I mean, the whole thing's great from start to finish, and it's Wino's music, so, you know, what can you say? Next, we got Judas Priest with Demolition. This would be the band's 14th studio album and second and final album to feature vocalist Tim Ripper Owens. And so far, this is the only Judas Priest album to feature the parental advisory sticker on the front cover. Motherfucker and a few other swear words are featured on the album. Hell, they should have got Samuel Jackson and Joe Pesci to make guest appearances on the record. The album is produced and mostly written by guitarist Glenn Tipton. The keyboards on the album were performed by Don Airey, currently of the band Deep Purple. I actually find this album better than Jugulator. Some people might agree or disagree, I don't give a fuck, but the production and the songwriting I like a lot better. But yeah, I still like Jugulator a lot. Ozzy, Down to Earth, Epic Records. This would be his 8th studio album. The lineup is also featuring Zakk Wylde on guitar, Robert Trujillo on bass, and this would be his only album before joining Metallica, and the first one to feature drummer Mike Borden from Faith No More. And like his later solo releases, it's not great, but it is pretty good. There are 3 songs I think stand out. One's Gets Me Through, Facing Hell, and That I Never Had. At the time of this release, I was more fixated on how come they didn't work on a Black Sabbath record instead. But shit happens. And this album's not too bad, but you know, Black Sabbath, come on. And here's a live one. Halford, Live Insurrection, Sanctuary Records. And this release features material written by Judas Priest, solo Halford of course, as well as his other band, Fight. I like the fact that there's a live version of Light Comes Out of Black, and the studio version of that song is only heard of the film soundtrack to the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. And a little trivia, the backing band of that song is Pantera, so pick up that soundtrack if you can still find it. There are 3 studio bonus tracks on the album. One original called Screaming in the Dark, and 2 of them are re-recordings of 2 unreleased Judas Priest songs, Heart of a Lion and Prisoner of Your Eyes. Fear Factory, Digimortal, Roadrunner Records. Album number 4, more radio friendly than obsolete. Not as good, not as heavy, but still a killer fucking album. And it was kind of a trip hearing the song Linchpin on the radio during the daytime. I like to say What Will Become is probably my favorite track, but I also like the song Dark Bodies. It kind of reminds me of Duran Duran, but heavy. And Be Real from Cypress Hill appears on the song Back the Fuck Up. No, seriously, back the fuck up. Just kidding. Oh yeah, and the limited edition features 4 bonus tracks if you could still find it. And this is the last album to feature this lineup of vocalist Burton C. Bell, guitarist Dino Cazares, bassist Christian Olwolvers, and drummer Raymond Herrera, because Dino would quit the band and Christian would take over guitar. And of course the transition of lineups would be all over the place after that. Armored Saint, nod to the old school. Metal Blade Records, a double disc compilation full of rarities. Features songs from the original Armored Saint EP from 1983, compilation cuts, 2 new songs, a few live tracks, a few odd demos, a cover of Judas Priest's Never Satisfied, and a cover of Robert Trower's Day of the Eagle. I really like the acoustic version of Tainted Past, as well as the 1988 and 1989 demos, but it's kind of a shame the song Shadows on My Face didn't make the cut. That's probably one of the best songs I've ever heard in demo format that should have been on an album. I used to have this on CD and it got fucking stolen. And the price for the album's pretty high, but maybe I'll get lucky on eBay or something. Thankfully I still have the MP3 or WAV files, but it's not the same, you know. Now we're going down grindcore territory with Soylent Green, a deleted symphony for the beaten down. The guitar and drum work on this album is fucking insane. Tommy Buckley's blast beats, and then next thing you know he's doing some jazz fills. Same deal with the guitars, doing the jazz and the blues thing, and then back to chaos once again. That's what I like about New Orleans influenced heavy music. Yeah, this is their 3rd full-length album overall, but probably my 2nd favorite release by the band. My first being Sewn Mouth Secrets, which I will get to another time, which came out in 1998. And yeah, I forgot to feature that on that video. Megadeth, The World Needs a Hero, their 9th full-length studio album, and the only album to feature guitarist Al Pitrelli. Definitely a step up from the last album, Risk. I think the lead single, Moto Psycho, is kinda cheesy. The other single, Dread and the Fugitive Mind, I find actually good, as well as the song, Return to Hangar. I'm not gonna say it's a great album, but it is a breath of fresh air. You know, hearing Megadeth go back to fucking heavy metal instead of whatever the fuck Risk was. And here we go into 9/11 territory with Biohazard, Uncivilization on Sanctuary Records. So this would be album number 6, and this album features a lot of special guests throughout the record, such as Roger Moret from Agnostic Front, Danny Diablo, Derek Green, Andreas Kisser, and Igor Cavalera of Sepultura, Sendog from Cypress Hill, Corey Taylor from Lipsnot, Jamie Josta from Hatebreed, Philip Anselmo of Pantera and Down, and Peter Steele of Typo Negative. The album cover features young cadets holding Biohazard flags. And with the band being from New York, yeah. And of course the following album, they really express their anger towards the whole bullshit of 9/11. Much fucking respect to these guys. And the album is good, not great. And I only say that because there's probably just a few fillers in the record. Last but not least, Slayer, God Hates Us All, American Records. Album number 9. This album is definitely a step up and a better follow-up to the album Diabolus and Musica. I didn't even want to cover that album in the 1998 feature I made. The release of the album was delayed due to its vulgar artwork. Fucking wham. And this is Slayer's last album to feature drummer Paul Bostaph, who was replaced by original drummer Dave Lombardo. Paul Bostaph ended up returning in 2015 for the album Repentless. And supposedly people were putting ties to the whole 9/11 thing in the album artwork. And of course religious fucktards are going to be offended. Oh well. Fuck 'em. Freedom of speech. That's all, folks. Thank you for checking out Mean Street Journal. Until next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. You better make a fucking donation to my PayPal, motherfucker. I mean, if you like my content, please make a donation. Mean Street Journal is on both YouTube and Spotify, and tpublic.com carries Mean Street wear for all your offensive apparel needs. Today's episode was brought to you by a local furniture retailer specializing in used products, such as nightstands, box springs, and mattresses, only at Mattress Sperm.